A tightrope act collapses in front of a crowd, an Olympic marathon spirals into chaos with dehydration, rat poison, and hallucinations, and a tennis star gets attacked mid-match. These are some of the most disturbing moments during live events. Lima is the most famous endurance race in the world, but in 1955 it became the site of a disaster that changed racing forever. Early in the race, a driver named Mike Hawthorne slowed down suddenly to enter the pits. This caused a chain reaction behind him. Another driver, Pierre Levey, was traveling at 150 miles per hour and had nowhere to go. His car hit the back of a slower vehicle, which acted like a ramp, launching him directly into the air toward the spectator stands. The car didn't just crash, it basically disintegrated. The heavy engine block, the radiator, and the hood flew through the air like projectiles, cutting through the crowd, burst into white-hot flames that were almost impossible for firefighters to put out with water. 83 people lost their lives that day. The most unsettling part of the story is that the race organizers decided not to stop the event. While bodies were being carried away, the remaining drivers continued to lap the track for another 12 hours. But they weren't being heartless. If they stopped the race, all the people leaving the venue at once would have clogged the roads, preventing ambulances from reaching the victims. The Wallendas were, and still are, circus royalty, famous for performing incredibly dangerous stunts without a safety net. Their 7-person chair pyramid was their most legendary act. It involved 4 men on the wire, 2 men on the level above them, and a woman at the very top sitting in a chair. During a performance at the Shrine Circus in Detroit in 1962, the group was in the middle of their act when the lead man on the wire suddenly lost his balance. The pole slipped and the entire pyramid collapsed in an instant. Thousands of families watched as the performers plummeted toward the concrete floor. 2 members of the family died on impact, and another was paralyzed from the waist down. The woman at the very top, Jenna Wallenda, managed to grab the wire as she fell and was caught by circus staff below. Even though the arena was filled with screaming and panic, the circus band was instructed to keep playing to try and calm the crowd. In a move that many found hard to believe, the surviving members of the family were back on the high wire, performing again the very next evening. It's old school, show must go on mentality. The marathon at the 1904 St. Louis Olympics has to be one of the most insane, disastrous sporting events in history. It was held in 90-degree heat on roads that were thick with dust. And to make matters worse, the organizers only provided 2 water stops for the entire 26-mile course because they wanted to see how it would affect the runners. It was basically an experiment. Well, as you can imagine, the result was pure chaos, but it wasn't even entirely to do with dehydration. One runner was chased a mile off the course by a pack of wild dogs. Another runner nearly lost his life because the dust he inhaled caused his stomach lining to tear. The man who crossed the finish line first, Fred Lors, actually cheated by riding a car for 11 miles. So the real winner, a man named Thomas Hicks, well, he somehow managed to make it, with his trainers feeding him a mixture of egg whites, brandy, and a type of rat poison. At the time, they thought small doses of it acted as a stimulant. By the final miles, Hicks was hallucinating. His skin had turned gray, and he had to be physically carried over the finish line by his team. He lost 8 pounds during the race and nearly died in the medical tent afterward. Good God, somebody needs to make a movie about this. In the early 90s, Monica Seles was the top female tennis player in the world. During a match in Germany in 1993, she was sitting on a bench during a break between games, wiping her face with a towel. The crowd was quiet, they were just waiting for the next set to start. A graphic showed up on screen with the score for people watching at home, like usual, and then suddenly a scream ran out. A man named Gunter Parch had run down from the stands. Before anyone could react, he plunged a 9-inch blade into Seles's back between her shoulder blades. The stadium went from dead silent to absolute panic as security tackled the man. Seles stood up, clutching her back, and then collapsed into the arms of the staff. Turns out the attacker was not really a random person. He was an obsessed fan of Seles's rival, Steffi Graf. Apparently, he didn't want to end her life, he just wanted to hurt her so she couldn't play tennis anymore, allowing Graf to become #1 again. Even though the wound healed in a few weeks, the mental impact lasted for years. Seles didn't return to professional tennis for 2 years, and the event forced every major sport to completely change how they handle security around athletes during live events. In 1964, during a high-stakes soccer match in Peru, a massive crowd gathered to watch their team play Argentina. Near the end of the game, the referee made a call that the local fans hated, and two people hopped the fence to run onto the field. The police on the scene beat the fans in front of everyone, and this caused the rest of the stadium to erupt in anger. To try and control the situation, the police fired tear gas into the stands, and that was a big mistake. The gas caused thousands of people to just panic and rush toward the exit gates to escape the fumes. Problem was, the steel gates at the bottom of the tunnels were locked. Because the people at the back of the crowd couldn't see what was happening at the front, they just kept pushing forward, and over 300 people were crushed, suffocated against the locked doors. Outside the stadium, the rioting grew so intense, the government had to declare a state of emergency. It remains the deadliest day in the history of the sport. In 2011, a crowd of about 12,000 people had gathered for a concert on a hot summer night. The weather was getting worse and a massive storm was moving in. Just as an announcer told the crowd that a storm was coming, but that they hoped the show would go on, a huge gust of wind, measured at nearly 70 miles per hour, hit the massive steel stage, holding thousands of pounds of lights and speakers, and in a few seconds, the entire rigging started to lean forward. Fans caught the whole thing on their phones as the steel beams groaned and then completely gave way, crashing down onto the people standing in the front row. 7 people lost their lives, and dozens more were trapped under the heavy metal. It's incredibly disturbing and sad how quickly the atmosphere changed from this fun night out to just total destruction. In May of 1985, the European Cup final was held at Heysel Stadium in Brussels, Belgium. The stadium was a bit of a dump. The concrete was crumbling and security was a mess. The organizers had put a group of neutral Belgian fans in Section Z right next to the most hardcore Liverpool supporters, with only a thin wire fence separating them. Well, about an hour before kickoff, the tension snapped, and Liverpool fans started throwing stones over the fence, and then they charged. The people in Section Z were just families and regular fans who had nowhere to go. They ran toward a concrete perimeter wall at the edge of the section to get away from the chaos. And the sheer weight of hundreds of people being pushed and crushed against the wall was too much for the old building. The concrete finally gave way and collapsed on top of them. 39 people died and hundreds more were hurt. And the most disturbing part is what happened next. Even though bodies were being carried out on pieces of fencing used as makeshift stretchers, the game went on. They were terrified that if they canceled it, the riots would burn down the city. So the players went out and played the full 90 minutes with dead bodies lying just outside the stadium walls. This is one of the most frightening examples of how a small mistake can lead to a massive disaster. In 2003, a rock band called Great White was performing at a small club in Rhode Island. As part of their opening, they used gerbs, which are small fireworks that shoot sparks into the air. The club had covered the walls in cheap acoustic foam to keep the noise down, though, and that foam was highly flammable. So within seconds, the sparks ignited the walls. At first, the crowd thought that the flames were just part of the show, but it only took about 30 seconds for them to realize the building was actually on fire. Everyone rushed to the front door at the same time, creating a bottleneck. The club became a smoke-filled trap in less than 2 minutes. 100 people didn't make it out, and this entire sequence of events was captured on camera. It is not an easy watch, but it does go to show just how dangerous these situations are, how easily fires can become deadly, especially in crowded places. In 1989, during a big soccer game in England, a massive number of fans were trying to get into the stadium all at once. To ease the pressure at the turnstiles, a police officer ordered a large exit gate to be opened. This allowed thousands of people to pour into a tunnel that led directly to 2 already overcrowded pens, which were fenced-in areas for standing fans. The people entering the tunnel had no idea the area was full, so they kept pushing forward. The fans at the very front were crushed against the high steel fences that were meant to keep them off the field. Because the game had already started, the noise of the crowd drowned out the screams, drowned out all the screaming for help. It took several minutes for security to realize that people were being crushed. 97 people died in the end. For years, the authorities tried to blame the fans for what happened, but a long investigation eventually proved that, well, this was just actually a massive failure and stadium safety. If there's one thing I've learned doing this list though, I'm never going to a soccer match, I don't think, especially not in Europe. The National Championship air races in Nevada are famous for planes flying at high speeds just a few dozen feet above the ground. Well, in 2011, a highly modified vintage fighter plane called the Galloping Ghost was competing. As the pilot, 74-year-old Jimmy Leeward, rounded a turn, a small piece of the tail broke off. This caused the plane to experience an incredible amount of G-force, which likely knocked the pilot unconscious. The plane pitched up, then dove straight down, traveling at over 400 miles per hour. It slammed directly into the concrete in front of the VIP grandstands. Because of the speed, there was no explosion. The plane basically disintegrated on impact, sending shrapnel through the seating area. 11 people were killed, including the pilot, of course. Now, there is footage of this, and it is absolutely terrifying to watch just how fast this happened. Nobody had time to even duck. It happened in an instant. Well, that's been the video, and I will catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.